I notice there are people who start with almost nothing in life. No support, no real advantage, nothing that makes the path easier for them. And still, they keep trying to move forward in some way. I keep thinking about how someone even begins like that. Sometimes it looks like success happens because of luck. But when I look closer, that explanation doesn't feel complete. There is something else happening behind the scenes. Something people don't usually notice. I notice that some people seem to keep going even when nothing is certain. No clear result, no promise that it will work out. They still don't stop in the middle. That part always stays in my mind. It feels like they learn to stay with discomfort for longer than most people can. Not because it feels easy, but because they don't escape it immediately. There is a kind of patience that builds slowly over time. And it changes how they react to life. I notice that waiting for results starts to feel normal for them. They don't need instant feedback to continue. Time stops feeling like pressure in the same way. It becomes something they move through instead of fight against. I think this slowly changes how their mind works. Rewards don't need to come quickly anymore. Even small progress feels enough to continue. And that shifts their entire direction without them noticing. Sometimes I feel like identity matters more than motivation. People don't act based on what they want. They act based on what they believe they are. And that belief stays quietly in the background. I notice identity doesn't change in one moment. It shifts slowly, almost without being noticed. Behavior starts moving first before anything else. Only later does the person realize something is different. People often repeat what feels familiar to them. Even when it doesn't help them anymore. Familiarity feels safer than change. And that keeps patterns alive for a long time. When identity starts shifting, actions begin to shift too. Not suddenly, but in small repeated moments. One small change leads to another. And slowly the pattern becomes different. Fear doesn't disappear in this process. It still shows up in decisions and thoughts. But it doesn't always stop the next step anymore. That part feels important. Uncertainty starts to feel normal after some time. Not comfortable, but familiar enough to move through. It stops feeling like a warning sign. And starts feeling like everyday life. I notice attention slowly shifts away from appearance. How things look becomes less important over time. What starts to matter more is what actually works. That shift changes priorities quietly. Skills begin to feel more important than image. Instead of showing progress, focus goes into building it. There is less need for outside approval. And more focus on internal growth. At some point, choices start to split in different directions. One side feels safer and slower. The other feels uncertain but forward-moving. And the difference becomes noticeable only later. One direction waits for certainty before acting. The other moves even without certainty present. Both look similar at first glance. But the outcomes slowly separate over time. From the outside, people might not see the difference. Everything can look almost the same for a long time. But internally, the experience is not the same. That gap stays mostly invisible. It's not really about removing fear completely. It's more about learning to move with it. Fear becomes something present but not controlling. And life continues alongside it. Over time, attention moves away from how things appear. And shifts toward what is being built slowly. There is less focus on reaction from others. And more focus on quiet progress. In the end, I don't see it as something dramatic. It feels more like adaptation over time. The mind learns to survive in its own way. And that shapes everything that follows.